Let's paint this cute little bistro set, the yellow and blue little outside area. It's so cute. I love it. So we are going to need our medium brush, a fine brush, like a smaller one, and a flat brush. So those are the ones we need, and all your paint. We are going to start by building up the layers. I painted this one in gouache also, so you can kind of see like a painted version of it. And I added a few more bricks. So we're just going to add a few more bricks to the one side. And I didn't add the plants. And in this one, oh, wait. This one, we will add a little bit of the plants. Kind of looks cute. I may even go back and add it on this one. I haven't done it yet, but I can. Okay, so we have to build up kind of the layers. Since our outside set is yellow, we want to be kind of careful to paint around it so so we can paint yellow on the chairs and the table. So you have to clean up some of your lines a little bit. Sometimes to trace these skinny lines can be a little bit messy. So I like to use one of these putty or kneadable erasers so I can just point it and kind of make some of my lines a little nicer. But let's get started. I'm going to go with my bigger brush and I'm going to start by filling in some of my window reflections and at the bottom. First, I need a little strip where I can mix color. I have one. Just gonna cut my seashell from this morning. Yeah, little strip so I can just show you what to mix. Even though we can see like a little bit of a car and a light, I'm not going to do all of those details. I'm just going to kind of paint them. I'm going to use some brown. I'm going to use a dark blue. Also, paint spray can help, or blue with some black in it. I'm going to mix between these two, maybe even a little bit more black. I'm going to mix between the brownish and the bluish color. And I'm going to do at least a few different layers. So I'm going to see if I can paint to the top of the pencil line. I'm touching the blue, but my paintbrush may be a little dirty. I'm going to leave a little edge to the left. I'm going to full. So the top and the right, you will touch your pencil line. And the left and the bottom, we don't want to touch pencil line. So that will be dark blue. And I can paint a square and drop it in. So it's not a perfect painted square. You can even push it a little bit to the side so it's a little darker towards the top. Going to the top again, so I'm going to touch the top. I'm going to follow the same recipe. So I'm not going to touch the left pencil line or the bottom pencil line, but I'm going to paint the right pencil line and the bottom pencil line. Not the bottom pencil line. Oh my gosh. And then go uneven for the wreath. I will show you a little trick with a flat brush. and then drop in a little bit of color to kind of just mess it up a bit. Let it dry, even if you paint it to the bottom of the pencil line by accident like I just did. We don't want to do that. I'm going to go across. I'm going to do the top. I'm going to just do the top rows. Top, left, uneven. Don't touch the bottom. Don't touch the left. And either go for brown or for black drop-in color. I always like to see, and when you wait for it to be a little darker even, it makes it so much easier to just drop in and it will kind of stay versus going everywhere. I'm gonna carefully paint. I think I'm missing a line here. I am missing a line here. Go down. You are not missing a line. I'm missing a line. Okay. Oops, go here to the top. Not the bottom. However, you can paint all the way touching the left. Paint around your leaf. And of course, there can be more leaves. We are just going to add those ones. Full in, full in, full in. Make sure your edges are nice and uneven for your wreath. When your paint is dry, you can take your flat, damp brush and you can just lift color. We're going to paint the blue on top, so it doesn't have to be white. And I went a little over here. Okay, so now I have 4 windows. I want to go down. I'm going to start on this side again. I'm going to do the same way. So I'm going to paint to the pencil line. Don't paint to the pencil line. The 2 sides will touch. Top and the right. Actually, you can paint all the way here. It's basically the middle, and then make sure you go uneven. Push it in. So true, you can touch this. It's basically the middle that we want to see. To the top. Oops. Uneven, push, push, push. And then leave a little sliver for your branch. So carefully paint around. So you can fill it in with greens later. I should have put my phone on airplane. Yeah. Make sure you touch a little bit so they're not even. and leave little space at the bottom. So when we do the blue, it's just easier to paint over it. So that's why we do it like this. So because it's reflections, we also don't need to paint so smooth. So drop in some of the brown, drop in some of the blue, so you can get different shades. And fill in all of these little blocks. A tiny bit more water than you think. Oops. Maybe not that much, but tiny bit more water, tiny bit more paint. It always dries a little lighter, but you can also lift color with a damp brush. A little bit more wet really helps. Okay, so filling in all we are doing. So the pattern looks like you want to have just a few, like a edge around your squares so you can paint the blue there. So that is why we are not touching all the pencil lines. We are leaving at least the top and the left side open. When you get to the flowers, make sure you go kind of around. Make sure you go a little uneven. You can even go a little bit lighter. So if you want to paint a few green over it, it's light enough for us to do that. And then always let it dry and see how it dries, because it always dries a little bit different than you think. Last one. You can definitely have more spaces for greens too. Okay. When it's dry and you see that some of them, like this one, is just the same shade, I would just go again, because you can do many layers. I would do again like this, maybe like a little swishy like this. Clean your brush, suck it up, blend out a little bit, blend out a little bit. Make sure you don't make your brush too wet, and you can kind of just mess up the same color space. So if it feels like it dried one color, just come back like this one too. So I'm going to come back and do a little swishy like that. So nothing perfect. And then you can kind of blend it in, or maybe you don't even need to blend it in. So it looks like more like a reflection. This one looks like it makes it's divided in the middle. So I'm just going to come and mess it up a bit. You don't need white spaces, so you can just fill in everything. And make sure you go uneven on the edges. Okay, so sort of kind of more or less you want to see a nice, and we're just going to paint it with blue. Let's go down to the bottom, the pavement. I'm going to use the same color, but lots of water. And I'm going to start painting. It is good. Oh, I think I'm going to do another line here, here. So by the time you get the picture, I've already worked it out. So you will be fine. Me, I will see lines that I missed. I don't want you to paint over the legs of the table or the chairs because it's going to be yellow, right? So try your best, try light, not to paint over your legs. You want to go at least like a 1/4 inch down so it doesn't look like your legs or your chairs are floating. Paint over it a light gray. I'm using the same color, just a little bit more water, so it's much lighter. And then I just want to paint in between. The darker you be, the more your legs are going to stand out for you to see where to paint. So if you are very dark, then that's the only difference. If you are lighter, it just will be lighter, and your yellow may just be maybe not standing out so much. The difference also between the gouache and the watercolor is the gouache is just very opaque where the watercolor is not. So we definitely have to work a little harder for us to just see the contrast. But we can do it. So keep on painting. Doesn't have to look like anything. You first certainly can put paint water down and then paint over it. It just sometimes it takes so long to dry. You can also use a bigger brush, but because the spaces in between is a little tiny, you may not want to do that. And paint this line here. Make sure you touch the pencil line here at the top. And even if I go up and down, I always try to stay side to side most of the time. And then you can kind of blend it in by just adding more water. Okay, let it dry. It doesn't have to be so perfect. I'm going to come and do the same gray color, maybe a little bit more paint. And I'm just going to paint this edge. I kind of lie. It looks like an archway. If you feel to add a little bit of a line, I say I can extend it a bit more. You want to add a little archway, a little line so you can see where to stop, you definitely can. And what I also want to do is paint a little softer, so with more water, just so I can add some greens over it. So even though it looks really dark on the photo, making it a bit softer here, especially where the greeneries are. And then when you touch your chair, try your best not to go into your yellow. And I know it makes sense to paint the yellow first, but because we have to layer, we have to do it this way. And then gently paint in between. Keep your color kind of soft. You will see the chair is taking shape because we are painting behind it, the negative space. Make sure you paint to the pencil lines. Even if you have to switch your paintbrush, you should. And then stay a little softer. So just blend it out a bit. Try your best to go in between. Um, so my pencil line will end kind of like this. Ish. Sometimes it's nice to have a little line to just keep you, but then also you can just, mine is, it feels like it's a little bit bigger now than I wanted it to, but sometimes it just helps you and you can kind of have a softer edge just so you can kind of keep straight. Okay, now next step. Mix a nice blue, any blue you want. So let me see. I have this dark blue. I'm just adding a tiny bit of that brown that was already there. And maybe want to add some yellow blue. So any kind of blue that you like. There's not really a wrong way. It's a what kind of blue do you like way? Oh, I like this one. So it's the dark blue, the light blue, and some purple. And all I do is I'm going to paint a light layer of this blue. You can switch to a bigger brush if you want to. Side to side, side to side. I'm going to skip that one and I'm going to paint over here. Just so they don't flow into each other, right? So that makes sense. I'm just going to wait. Then I'm not going to go down, even though it feels like we should go down. I am going to go to touching my window panes. So go around the little bushes here. Right. So if your windows inside are still wet, you cannot do this step. There's not really much to it. You just basically want to fill it in. You want to try to keep inside the lines and straight, right? So don't go crazy. Around your chair. And again, stop by that line so we can have different sections. So it's easy to see. Make sure you paint touching your windows. Make sure you touch your table. Make sure you touch the chair. Make sure you touch the plant. Go to the other side, do the same. Don't go in the leaves. Mix new paint because you're out. Try your new paint next to your paint. Just so you make sure you have the same color. It's not really the same color, but you know, it's good enough. I think if I make it a bit lighter, it will move. Yes. So your greenery will kind of hide a lot of your unevenness because it is a little tricky to paint in between. And then when you get to the window panes, make sure you touch it. So make sure there's no white spaces. You can also do this with a flat brush if you think that's easier. But try to keep it, straight. Then this is the tricky one. You can either turn your paper or turn your arm a little bit. And then for in the blues, when you get into the window pane, you can just kind of blend it out. Just so you don't see these little ends. I am out of paint, so I'm just mixing more. Make sure you try it next to your color. Um, let's fill in this one. So now the paint is new, so it may not be exactly the same. If yours is exactly the same, good for you. We just want to basically fill it in. And yes, we can do it, one go, but I kind of always like the way it kind of dries and give a nice edge. Definitely blend it out a little bit more. You can lift color by just dragging a wet brush over it. And then you want to go all the way down. So I'm going to paint this one. Careful around my chair. Skip, paint. Let's see to where that ends. Cannot really see. We will just wing it. Be careful. Not to go into your yellow. I think the yellow kind of ends right there. Well, we'll just pretend the yellow ends right there. We just wing it. Yeah. So by the time you will have this trace, your line, I will make you trace it perfect. Me, I'm winging it a bit, but you will easily see where to go. And then go down. And then yellow will be the stop section. So it will make sense eventually. I'm going to go this side also, just so it's matching. And then if this one is dry enough, you can paint the second one. If you have to wait in between. So there's little lines that connect the chairs like here. So you don't want to paint, you need to paint that in. So even if you didn't maybe trace the double line, there's definitely a line there. Like it's a... So notice how I can kind of paint up and down too, but then I go back because my brush is not too wet. I can definitely get away with a little bit less. If it's wet, sometimes it's just like this now. It's too wet to paint. If it's too dry, you can see stripes. So your consistency of your brush is very important, your water. Always sort of kind of try it before you just start painting. So basically, you want to fill all these blue in. More or less the same. Oh, there's a leg. There's a leg I forgot about. you will have a leg with that you traced. Carefully around your yellow legs. Because if it's gonna turn green if you are not careful. So make sure you leave enough space. My brush, and I'm gonna see if I can lift color. So it's just a damp brush, and I can use it to see if I can just make it a bit lighter. Never will we ever make enough paint. Okay, so there's a leg that I forgot. So clean your brush, the flat one, and you can lift color like this. Luckily, this one is a little behind, so it's going to be a bit in the shadow. And now I made a big color, but I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And then the other leg is like right here. So I'm just going to see if I can lift a little bit of color here. And you can even take a spot on your toe and you can see if you can lift the color even more. If it's wet, you cannot come back, but it should be dry enough for me to just use the flat brush and then I can just kind of leave paint next to it so my leg space is back again. There's also, I'm just going to think I'm going to make it a different color because I can. So the X between the legs, I also didn't make that double. You will have it double. I will remind you. Me, I'm just going to wing it on this one. Okay. So the whole frame is yellow. Yes. This one that's left over. So back to your bigger brush. My yellow is always a tiny bit dirty, so it is what it is, but it's going to be kind of like this. If your yellow is really bright, add a little bit of purple. And then your first layer. Kind of medium color, so not too light. Like a little tiny bit too much water on it. Go all the way down. Touching your chair. Be careful, need to blend with your blue because it will definitely turn green. Then I want to kind of paint around my trees, but because yellow is light, I know I can paint over it. So you can leave a few spaces, but you can just you can paint over it. And I'm not going to do my chairs yet. I'm going to just hold on so you can paint all the way down. Ooh, we forgot one blue section. Get your blue on and paint here. Okay, so there's a lot of different, but you can see how interesting it dries. So you don't just want to paint over it. You could, definitely could. There's never a wrong way. And then again with this one, I just want to see if I can lift color a little bit. See, I like sometimes when it gives that dark, that little edge where you overlap. Okay, so now we have our first layer of yellow down. We want to make it a bit darker, especially here where the yellow chairs will be. And then this line because it is going in. So yellow, and then I'm adding a little bit more purple. And if you can try it on top of your yellow, you kind of want to see the color on top of it, but it's basically a mustard yellow. So not really yellow ochre, more but you want to try it on top so you can see the difference. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this color, so it's yellow with some purple. I'm going to paint this bottom section that's touching my blue. That is that section right here. And then I do want to have a few lines going side to side. Now, if it's easier for you to do it with a smaller brush, you can. I'm going to start from this line. So I'm just going to go a little darker maybe. And they can be a little broken. They don't have to be so perfect. And there can be a few. I did 1, 2, 3 lines. That one is a little thicker. So depending on how you hold your brush, I'm going to do a square. And maybe a few lines like that for now. It's like a little detail. And on this one, you may not really see your square, so it's kind of hidden behind these plants. And then I also want to have lines that goes up and down like this. So get some, if you're out of paint, add a little more. And when you get down here to the by the chair, you want to go and add even a tiny bit more shadowy color. So you want to have up and down lines like that. You want to make sure that you go, so when you went the brighter yellow over it, on your chairs, it will show up. Follow the curve, blend it out a little bit. Have your kind of stripy lines. So I'm doing both sides at the same time. I can also switch to my flat brush, make it wet, get some color. Have your hand down. and kind of blend it in. You can also, if your line went a little too big, you can kind of blend it out. Basically turning the flat surface into a texture. So I'm going to do the same here, even though you may not see a lot of it. So just making, instead of just one yellow, you want to get this effect of stripes. If your yellow feels very washed out and too light, come back with your flat brush, bring some yellow back. So there's no wrong way or right way. It's just like bring back some yellow, see if you can make it a little stripy up and down. Brighter is better, so the blue and the yellow really contrast each other. If it feels like you're brown or dirty or yellow too much, just come back with the bright yellow again on top of it. And you can bring it back. If you make a big muddled mess, let it dry. Hold on. Just let it dry and then we will come back again. I'm switching to my round brush again. And then what I want to do is I'm having just the plain yellow to begin with. Oh, I didn't paint blue there. Paint the blue in between. So before we do more yellow, okay, so we will just paint on the blue again. Okay, so make sure you paint your blue here. That is not the same blue. Use your strip to check. Uneven right here, where you touch your plants on your table. Uneven right here. Okay, so now let's do the shadow areas on the blue while we have more blue. Where it is touching the top and the left, we want to make a shadow. So I'm going to get the same color, maybe add a little bit of black, but check the same color if it works. If your yellow is wet, you have to be very careful. Point to the top, touching the yellow. Point to the side. Between all your leaves. It'll be easier if there's no leaves. But the leaves does make it pretty. Check your color. If it's too bright, too light, add a little bit of black to your blue. Make sure this line is straight. Now I want to go, well, let's start at the top. I want to also paint stripy like I did here. So I'm going to do a line and I'm going to add side to side. If your brush is wet, it's a little tricky to paint, right? So you might want to touch your brush. And I'm going to do side to side. It's making it interesting for now. And then these little details, I'm going to paint touching my pencil lines. So even if you use exactly the same paintbrush, the same color, it will show up. Clean your brush and then maybe blend in the bottoms. And then I'm out of blue paint again. And make your little, so you can see if you have the same color. Then make your line. So now my paint is very concentrated because I just mixed it. And then add your little scallop. So the little tiny things will be the original color. And this will just looks like extra detail. Again, side to side, just gives interesting details to that top section. Make sure you also go from the one side. Don't leave the edges without any paint. If you went too much, wet brush, flat brush, flat, damp brush, and you can lift a little bit of color. Make sure you paint up into the pencil line and then make sure you leave a little space so the highlight will keep showing. You may have to do this more than once to let it show up, but we're also going to come back with a dark color to paint over it. So even if you just see a little bit like that, that's good enough. I also want to make this a little bit more interesting. So I'm just going to point my brush here and I'm going to paint up and down, kind of like I'm sketching. And when I get down to my chair, even if I outline, I want to mess up that outline line. So paint up and down, and then go side to side again. Just make it a little bit more interesting. Make sure you touch your pencil lines. And then when you get to these ones, same idea. You don't have to repaint everything, but definitely use your pencil line as your guideline to tell you where to go. Then blend it out. Make sure you go close to your pencil line so it's really nice and framed. So by the time you just do a little yellow, filling it in, it will look really good. So now we came with our one color, we came with our second color, and then we have to come with a shadowy color. Don't forget this. So basically I'm pointing my brush to the curve. I just paint over that leg again. Never will I ever learn. I go in here, making sure that I go around my chair so it stands out. Be careful for too much water. Maybe you need to bring back your leg. How many times can you paint over one leg? Well, let me tell you, many times. Okay. Second thing we want to do. Oh, wait, never mind. Paint here if you didn't do it. But now I think there is window pane, which I didn't paint. Okay. Now what I want you to do is, I'm using the same kind of blue that I've been using. It's here, even though there's nothing, almost nothing left. I'm adding a bit more black. Can even do one hair of brown to it. And then at the bottoms of all the window panes, the window frames, I just want you to give a little, but don't go, I don't think, they don't go through it. Yeah, don't go through it. Just give a bottom, a bottom, bottom. See how I kind of now frame it so it stands out a little bit better. And do the top. So a darker, almost black color. It will look different if you mix it and you try it on white paper versus on the blue. And you basically want to outline everything. Do the little side to side one or up and down ones also. You can also switch to a smaller brush if you think that's easier. You can also use a pen. Framed versus unframed. So the frame just kind of give it a little bit more structure. Try to keep your lines skinny. So definitely rethink what kind of brush you want to use. I didn't do the top, but if your lines are messy on the top of your side to side lines, you definitely should do it. I'm trying to not have my hand too much in the way so you can see what I'm doing. Up right like this is obviously much better for skinny lines, but I don't want to hide too much what I'm doing. Also, give a little frame for this guy. And then because this windows can maybe open, I divided it in half. And then since my line over here at the top dried very light, I'm just going to bring back some of this dark shadowy color right there. And I am over here from this corner to this corner, I'm going to give a little line. So it feels like it's going inside. And you can make a nice darker shadow going down, only touching that diagonal line. Not sure if you can see this one. Maybe you will have plants there, but from the one angle to the one corner to the other corner, you can make a little diagonal line. that shows your window going in, and then continuously adding layer upon layer to get to a nice darker one. If your line here dries too light, just come back again, because sometimes they just dry light. If you feel like some of your lines are too thick, your flat brush, push it. Be careful not to just lift too much color, but you can definitely soften it, but it will still have that dark edge, right? So you can definitely come back and add and take away and move and do all the things. I didn't do the top of my lines, but if it feels like your lines are messy, definitely do them. So then you just go. And it can be a very, I have a fluffy, can be a very sketchy line. And the way you hold your brush makes it skinny. And I didn't do this line. Or maybe I did and it just dried light. Okay, so make sure you come back and kind of frame and outline everything. And if you went too dark, use water, push it towards it, soften it a little bit. While I have this color on my brush, I'm just going to fill in window here and here. And blue, oops, too much water, right there. That's now basically one color. The key to uneven will make your wreath stand out and look a little bit more like roundish. So that's kind of cool. Then let's go down to the here. I can just use the same background that I used here, that we used here, maybe a little bit more brown, maybe a little bit more black. If this was kind of your color, I'm just going to use something like this on top of it. So a blackish brown. I'm going to point my brush. Okay, so do not paint over this leg. Where the pavement and the wall connected, you want to make a nice line. It's not fun to paint between these legs, let me tell you. That's why it's okay if you lose your legs a little bit. Okay, so I did it a little bit uneven, right? I clean my brush, I suck it up, and I sort of try to see if I can pull out the color a little bit. The nicer I can paint around the legs of the chairs, the nicer they will stand out. So if I have too much light spaces, it's just going to look weird. So try your best to go close to your pencil lines so you don't see interesting white spaces. Make sure you don't have any white at the top. And then drag it out. Then there's a pencil line that we did that is the concrete block. So now I'm going to use that corner and I'm going to do a little swishy with my brush here and there. So it's going to go light, dark, darker, light, little darker. And I'm using that pencil line as kind of my guideline where I will start and make the new, different color. Don't drop water on your paper. Then I'm going to take the same color and I'm going to, well, let's add a little bit more brown. And I am going to paint here. I'm adding a little bit more brown. So now I'm going to paint up and down, up and down. You don't have to go all the way to that pencil line. You may not have it. You may not draw it in. So up and down. And until you get to the chair. So kind of like this. It's okay if you go a little over the edge, right? So kind of like this. Clean your brush. Add some blue. And do not drop water. Add some, like, touch your blue again. And then come back from this side. And let them blend. And your blue doesn't need to be bright. It's not this blue. It's more of a dirty sky kind of blue. Go back into this dark color you had here at the bottom. And then paint up and down. Yeah. You can go a little softer because we can make leaves over it. Leave a little space and paint another section. Again, you don't have to go all the way. You can kind of just wing it a little bit. Ooh, don't go over it. Yeah. Something like that. You can take more of this color that was your first this arch, and you can just kind of paint a little bit over it. Again, careful around your chair. Because it dries so lighter or it dries different. So it's kind of nice to just come back and add a few more shades. Do the outside edges, clean your brush, suck it up, blend it. And then come back and just kind of blend it. And the more uneven kind of you blend it, the nicer it looks. I think you don't have to be so specific. And then add some side to side details. Maybe if it's not dark enough, go back and add more, because more is better. And uneven, swishy, swishy, uneven, and then stop. We want to work here at the back before we come and do the chairs. So I'm going to use the same color. I kind of like the same color. And now I have my light, I have my medium. I want to come back with my shadow. So I'm going to start here. It's kind of the windowsill. I'm going to give a little side to side painting stripies like this. Clean my brush, suck it up. Make sure you get all the water on your brush and then blend it out. Be careful not to blend too much because you will lift your blue. So if you feel that is the case, get blue on your paintbrush before you come and blend it out. And then I want to go divide these. And I want to divide these. Go a little darker right there. I clean, I come back. Again, if you're lifting color, come back with some blue on your brush. And then repeat that color everywhere. Do not go into that lake. How many times can one person go into that lake? Many. Clean your brush, suck it up, lift it, push it out. And then last, where it is touching the pavement, it is definitely much darker. So now I want to come from the pavement side and I want to kind of paint up. So the pavement will be my line, and then I just push it up a little bit. Uneven lines. Clean, suck it up, tap, tap, tap to blend it in. Very uneven. So now you can see that this one got a little out of hand because my brush was a bit too wet. And so what you can do is you can try to lift it, or you can just match this one to it. Do make sure you paint touching your pencil line so it doesn't look like you have this light blue frame around it. We are definitely painting the negative, and then we're going to come back and do the actual objects. So you can just kind of wet it and let the water kind of help you to do the work. Maybe the windowsill is too blue, so you can kind of mess it up. Then we're going to come and do a little bit detail. So see how the lines kind of help them stand out. I'm going to do the same thing. Again, feel free to switch to a different brush. I'm just going to paint. And I like to do like a sketchy little line. I'm going to go up. And I'm going to definitely frame it on the other side also. And I'm going to frame it here. I'm going to do a brick wall. And then I'm just going to do a little line on that square. I also want to do the yellow dividing the blue. I'm not pushing down hard. My lines remain fairly skinny. Up in the air is much better for skinny lines, but then I'm kind of feel I'm hiding what I'm doing. For These ones, I just want to make a little, like a little shape. Now, if it feels like some of your lines are too thick like these ones, again, switch to your flat brush, wet it, push it. I always like to go from light pushing to the dark side because then I don't make the light too muddy. So you can definitely clean up some of your lines if you went a little too big. I kind of like this sketchy idea. Clean your brush really well. Oh, let's do this one also. So get the same color, get the same color. And then I'm dividing my concrete blocks. Oop. If your brush is too wet, suck it up before you start painting. Definitely a smaller brush will be nicer. I also, where my concrete is touching my blue wall, I'm giving a nice little crisp line. Oh my gosh, I didn't see I was painting where you guys couldn't see. I'm so sorry. Just use your pencil lines and divide your concrete blocks. Same idea. If your brush strokes get too thick, use your flat brush. Just kind of push it to the one side. Use a skinny brush, can help. And then over here, I'm just going to make a pretend trellis. I will give you some outlines. So you don't have to do it all by yourself. Or you can. You can make little patterns or you can just kind of like a little pretend trellis. Something like that. That looks cute. Let me see. Oh, let's paint more yellow. So clean your brush really well. Like what you see, make sure your lines are nice and pretty. Come with your yellow. Light is always better to begin with. And do your wreath. Don't touch your blue. And just go in a circle, kind of stripy. Tap, tap, tap. First layer. Come with your first layer on your yellow flowers. Just make it wet. You can just do this whole thing. Make sure you don't leave any white spaces, so touch your background. And then we're going to start doing the tables and the chairs. So you can decide which one you want to do first. Sometimes starting with the table is a little easier. I am doing not too light. Be careful to pull out your blue. Paint your first layer in like this. It's just going to be one shade. Your legs. Oh, that leg got really sturdy. That leg got a little green. Make sure you paint all the way, touching your background. We will make our yellow stand out more. So you're against the yellow background, so don't worry about it. Just fill in all of them. Put a little leg at the back. He really wants to not be painted. How many times can we paint over one chair leg? Okay, and then fill in your yellow everywhere. You have to let this dry. Don't even try to see how lighter it's drying. So definitely let this dry. Do any color pot you want to do. I'm going to do brown with some yellow and orange to get like my terracotta kind of pot. Looks like this. Just going to do a pot like that. One color. Come back with some of that blue color this dark color we were using, and just drop it in at the bottoms. In your brush, go into a lighter green. I'm doing an olive green. And all I want to do is paint everywhere one color. I make sure I go uneven, so I point the brush. It's going to be wet, so it can either flow a little bit or just paint carefully around it. Because the space is so small and we don't use a lot of water, it should dry fast. And then one green color. Doesn't have to look like anything. I'm going to use the same green color and I'm going to start painting some of the leaves. I'm not going to paint all of them the same color next to each other, so I'm jumping around a little bit. So I'm painting here and there, here and there. You can paint over your yellow if your green can do it. You may want to, add a little darker green. Maybe when you have the olive green, you can add some purple to it, and you can change the color a bit to that color. You can even go a little bit brown. So change the color of your greens by adding something and go tap, 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 tap. You don't really have to paint a leaf. And do a few, jump around, and then change your color, and then come back and add more. And change again. And tap, tap, tap. And see if you can fill in all the white spaces. So if you left a lot, you may have to do a lot. If you don't leave a lot, if you didn't left a lot, then you have less. I think the leaves actually go here. So if you want to, you can let them even go over your blues here. I try to stay zoomed in, but then I don't notice if I go off the page. So you can definitely go like that. I'm gonna fill in this little section just with some gray, if you haven't painted that yet. If your color dried really light here, you can just kind of go even over your little trellis. You can just kind of tap, 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 tap. You can kind of mess it up a little bit. Sometimes things just dry so light and then you're just like, I wanted it darker. I just dropped a drop of water there. Okay. Now, still leaving my yellow just for a moment. Kind of come back with the same green idea that you just had. So different ones, and then do a little different, especially where you see the flowers, do a few little darker lines. So your green bush just doesn't feel like one color. So I just did this. I went a little bit crazy. Let me see if I can lift it up. So just tap, 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 tap everywhere. You can even take this darker color and maybe go a little in between some of your flowers. See what I mean? And then we need a nice brown. My brown is very wet, so I just picked up a lot. You can use yellow ochre. You can use a little bit of pink. You can maybe use some reddish brown. So you need a nice brown, lightish. So maybe something like this to begin with. Yeah. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do about, so again, if I can show you with a ruler, not that I want you to be so perfect, but it will just maybe helpful if you can see. Oh, maybe that was a little skew. Something like that. I'm using my flat brush. I make a big square kind of here. And then I want to paint some bricks. A little bit lighter. So I'm going to make a long one. It's so wet. I'm going to break it up. A long one, break it up. Ooh, or not. A long one, break it up. A long one, break it up. A long one. Maybe a bigger brush, maybe a bigger flat brush will give you bigger bricks that will not take so long to paint. Ooh, try to break them up. Ah, don't do that. A long one, break it up. Try to keep your grout, consistent-ish. And then just for in this section here. For now. Then we're going to let the bricks dry like that. Let's go back with our different brush in our yellow. Now you can do the same yellow again, or remember you can add some purple to your yellow to just give it a nice warmer touch, like a mustard yellow. So whatever yellow you decide to go on, do the shadowy area around the pot. Do the line. Let's do the front. And do your shadow swishy, swishy, right? So don't make a straight shadow. Do the line, do the front. I even gonna add like one hair of pink with my yellow to just get it a little bit also to the warmer side. I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna do this line and that one. So basically going back and do all the legs and except for the seating areas yet, you want to give another like coat of yellow to just make it darker and more just darker. Change and play with the type of yellow you have and play and change a little bit with how much purple you add. And you just want to have a warm, darker yellow. And so see how you can kind of see them a little bit better. like this leg versus these ones. I didn't switch to my small brush because I don't want it to be taking so long. Be careful, do not make your yellows the same here at the top by the back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, instead of going all the way to the edge, I'm just going to do the middle. I'm going to do a little soft circle in the middle. Clean my brush, suck it up, and soften the edge a little bit. So your light yellow, your first layer will be on the outside, and then the inside will have a darker edge. Mix one hair of purple with that a little darker and just give him a little swishy to the front, like a little smiley face. And blend it in. So darker here and then a little bit lighter to the edge. Check your tabletop color. Do you need to come back with some bright yellow over it? Then you should. Make sure you paint over your shadow. And come back with your same yellow, purpley, pinky. And then you want to come back and add to your wreath. Tiny, tiny little strokes and change direction and check how wet your brush is. If it's too wet, just move on and then let it dry and come back and add more. Wreath needs to dry. Let's do flowers. Get a little bit more pinky with your yellow. And do from the bottoms of your flowers. Do from the bottoms. Tap, 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 tap. Clean your brush, suck it up, let it dry like that. We have to still work on our chest. We are not done, but let's move to our brick wall that I kind of, messed up a little. So flat brush again. I'm using the same color. I'm just adding more brown and maybe a little black or even blue. Let's see. Let me see. Have your color so you can see what it looks like on top. Lovely. I'm going to switch first to my round brush. I'm going to get the brown and the blue. Make sure you try it on top so you can see that it's a little bit darker. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to point my brush here, going over my bricks with this dark color. Point, point, point. Before I go all the way down, I'm going to pull it out. So come back and mess up that line. You will not really lose your first little bricky lines. If you do, we are just going to come back and add it in. Paint carefully. In your brush. I should have let my pavement just extend it to that side. here. I will just make pavement over it. Yeah. Don't let your brick go into your yellow. Okay. Letting it dry. I'm just going to come back with some pavement color on top of this brown. Okay. Now you can see that some of them have mixed a little bit in. Totally fine. I'm switching back to my flat brush. I'm getting this darker brown, bluish brown, blackish brown, the one that I just used. And all I want to do is I want to add my grout. I like to sometimes see a little white highlight here and there. So it's kind of fine if your lines are not so perfect. If it's a bit wet, it might flow. Maybe that's what you want. I'm first just doing the side by side lines. And then I can come back and just put my brush down. So see how I can bring some back. And then sometimes you have to just let them kind of do up and down and side to side. So they kind of feel the same. And then sometimes you mess it up and you have the same ones. And then you clean your brush, you suck it up, and you come back and you fix it. So you can also do a little swish on every single brick to just give a sort of a different drying experience, like how it dries. Yeah, I messed up this one. This one, this one. Line. This one. Okay, so you can see that it's very easy to get confused what you want to do. But do you also see that nobody really knows? So you'll be fine. And then I just want to divide that one and here, definitely. Sometimes it's fun to paint with a flat brush, but then sometimes it like lifts the color where you don't really want to lift color. But it can also help you to paint really skinny lines. And then again, make sure your up and down line is very pretty and straight. And you can kind of pull it in. And you can play with your bricks a lot, but just think that they are not supposed to be so perfect. They are just kind of exposed to all the elements. And then make sure it's dark here at the bottom. Yeah. I'm going to switch to my tiny little baby brush for some details. I'm going to use my, oh, I should clean my brush. I'm going to use the brown, the yellow with purple to get a nice brown. Add a tiny bit of pink to it to just get like a nice, warm yellow brown. It's going to look something like this. And then what I want to do is I want to outline some of the light, the whatever you call this. Let me see if I can zoom in. You will see that my lines are not perfect at all. So what I want to do now is I want to come back and use my pencil lines and just make a few. Let me just get more paint on my brush. It feels like it doesn't want to focus. Use your pencil lines and give yourself some detail. I'm not using black, but I'm using a darkish brown. And I'm just using my pencil lines. If you cannot see your pencil lines anymore, then you wing it. If you use your small brush, you will feel that it's sometimes a little tricky to paint with it because it doesn't have enough paintbrush or bristles and paint and water. So you have to touch a few more times. So it definitely makes a difference. You can come back and repeat that same color here and there. So I'm going to come back and give myself a nice edge. I can also, since the color shade is different than what I have, even if I make it a little bit watery, it will show up. So I can give a few lines so it looks like the texture of the table. So a few diagonal lines. I can do the same on the chair. Ooh, that's too much purple. But now I'm just going to repeat it everywhere because I cannot take it away. And then the last thing we want to do, well, one of the last things we want to do is we want to give a shadow somewhere. So especially where the legs are touching. I'm going to do, oh, not that dark. Where the legs are touching, I'm going to make sure that there's a little bit of a shadow. Oopsies. So I'm going to do a lot like this. And then clean my brush, suck it up, and come back and mess it up. Don't leave it so weird. I think this one is very light. I'm just going to dirty him up. So make sure you kind of smoosh it in. So you don't want to see your outlines or your shadow area. So even if you see it, kind of come back and mess it up, mess it up, mess it up, mess it up. See how your flowers were drying. If you feel they need another layer, I will come with just my plain yellow from the top and paint over everything. If your flowers need some more different shades, you can. And then I need to switch to my small brush. I'm getting a nice dark, the same kind of color I use for my windows, you know, the brownish black color. And I want to come and do with my skinny brush. I kind of want to give a few little lines in between. So it looks like the shadow areas in my wreath. Not a lot, so do very little. Just kind of give some dark areas. And then the same darker color, I want to just give a little shadow here where it's touching my window. And the window frame is making a shadow inside. So I'm going to do behind or underneath. I feel I cannot talk. You want to do underneath, underneath, underneath. Right? Can you see them? And then to the right. Just one line. It can be kind of a broken line too. Extra details. I'm going to use the same color and I'm going to give some branches. Oh, I don't even know if I need it. Well, maybe you want to have some branches. Maybe you need some here. I don't know if we need it. I think we're good. If you don't want to do branches, don't do branches. Okay, check your chairs. If they do not stand out enough, I'm going to make a blue outline so I can just go back and kind of outline them with my skinny brush. My blue color will be something like this. So not too dark, but just something. And if yours is not standing out well, you can definitely come back and give him a little outline. See how I do that. But then if you do that, clean your brush, make sure you get it, and then just soften it and pushing it back. So it definitely ends like this dark edge. So if you think yours need a little help here and there, especially here by the triangles, so your skinny brush will help you by not having too much paint or water on the brush. So it will be a little easier to use your small one. But then if you see the outline, then definitely come back and kind of just push it back. So see how that one, I come back. Oh, this is the wrong brush, wait. And I can just push it back. And I love to use little circles to kind of blend it in because then it's just so you don't see stripes. And I don't think I left anything out, so I think this is it. You can do the same if you're yellow. I don't know if I said it already. You can also outline your yellow a little bit here. But your background, wall, frame, whatever this is called yellow, is darker, so more mustardy yellow versus the chairs. And there's nothing that stops you to just make more greenery. So you can just add green everywhere. Very cute. I hope I didn't miss anything. Please share with me after you painted this.